active management is destroying your financial plan. Hi, I'm Scott Leonard, certified financial planning professional and founder of Navigoe, a wealth management firm. Now, that's a pretty bold statement, but I've got some data here and just some concepts to really show this to you quickly and easily how this is happening. Let me start by reviewing the stock market really quickly. If you were to take all the active managers that are out there, all the managers, mutual funds, ETFs, managers that are there, and take their performance and plot them on a chart by the number of managers and their percent return, you would get this bell-shaped distribution of returns. And with that, only 20% of the managers are beating the index. Now, I have a longer video that talks about active versus passive management that goes over this in much more detail. No one's disagreeing with this data. This is just the data that's there for the facts. Where the data does come into controversy is these 20%, are they there because of luck? Someone has to be. Or are they there because there's skill? Well, I just address that in the prior video also, that there seems to be no repeat performance, which suggests that it's not a skill. It's actually a luck that's there. However, back to the subject of this video, what's it mean for you when you're doing your retirement plan? Well, simply when your retirement plan is created, it is created using index data. So when they're forecasting the returns of the market to show how your money is going to grow to be able to fund your goals and your desires when you retire or whatever they might be down the road, the data that's being used is actually the returns of the indexes. And so if you were to actually say, hey, my financial plan works with this index data, well, you know what? Why don't I just implement my financial plan with that index data? But what most people tend to do is they try to do better. And they say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and wind up here and select managers. They're going to beat the index and do better than the index. But the real risk of that is winding up down here and actually underperforming the index. If you were to be able to do this, if you were able to get a 1.5% return above the index every year, over 30, 40 years, that would have a very meaningful impact in your retirement. Now, today, you wouldn't change what you're doing. You wouldn't save less. You wouldn't plan on retiring sooner. That if you were just happen to be one of the people that were able to do that for that period of time and find those active managers across your entire portfolio. But also on the converse, that if you were to do worse, if you were to do 1.5% worse or 2% or 3% worse than the index over that 20, 30-year period of time, you're in a lot of trouble. Your financial plan has completely failed. And so that's the real risk. And this is why active management is destroying these plans. Now, that's the concept behind that. If you want to stay a little bit long in the video, let me kind of give you some data behind this. So this is not empirical research. Call this more anecdotal than anything else. I went into Morningstar, which is a public database that anyone can have access to. And I looked at the 5-year returns going back from April 6, 2026, and going back 5 years. And I said, give me the returns of the large cap growth managers, which are really the managers that are there in the same asset class as the S&P 500, trying to beat the S&P 500. And during that period of time, there were 1,924 mutual funds. Only 14% of those funds actually beat the S&P 500 index. What was its return during that period of time? It was a 12% return, is what it actually earned during that period of time. So let's compare that out to what else was going on in the marketplace. The single best fund during that period of time was called One Rock Fund. One Rock Fund had a 24% return on average over those 5 years. That is incredible. If you could get a 25% return over a 12% return for not even just 5 years, but 10, 20, 30 years, that would drastically, positively affect your net worth. There's no doubt about it. Let's be realistic. That fund is only managing $35 million today. So very little people actually got that return. Let me share one that's a little bit more reasonable. There's a fund out there called the Fidelity Growth and Income Fund. Why did I pick that one? It's managing $14 billion. A lot of people are in that fund. Plus, Fidelity is a very big brand name. A lot of people have access to it. So it's reasonable that people would have gotten those returns. That fund came in and its return was 13.4%, and it beat 96% of all the other funds that were out there. That's what that Fidelity fund is. So that's there. If you could have gotten 1.5% better than the S&P or than the index, and you can do that consistently over time, that's meaningful. That's meaningful to your retirement. It's going to mean you could retire potentially sooner. You could give some more money to the kids. That is a meaningful number. And I don't want to discourage that, but it's hard to do. It's hard to actually identify those in advance. But what's the risk of that? What did the average fund do? Well, the average fund during that period of time had a 9.58%, right? That means half of the funds out there did worse than the 9.58%. That is 2.5 percentage points worse than the S&P 500 during that period of time. Doing 2.5% worse than what was projected in your retirement plan will have a drastic effect on your retirement. In fact, your retirement plan is exploded. It's not even going to be successful. You're going to have to work a lot longer, spend a lot less money, not even reach the goals that you want. And that's really why I'm saying that active management is destroying people's retirement plans.